again, allocations for government projects and how to include them in the 2024 budget schedules has been on the table. And everybody and their brother's waiting for them to see how they can do this at 1310. Now remember, a lot of these folks still think that they're doing projects at 1310. But if you go back, and you guys can probably find this in Patreon, that we show that the Tave Sammy and her crew actually have data that supports that projects that were on the books over a period of time have allocations for them to keep building. And therefore, because they're building hospitals and some schools and some other projects, those were already started. So they were started from previous budgets. So to suggest that they're still doing it at 1310 is a very unstudied way of looking at it, in my view.
Welcome to Pimpy's Investment Chat, where we keep investment talk simple. And here's your host, Pimpy.
Oh my God, Barry, you entertained the hell right out of me. Look, I said it before and I'll say it again. If anything, Barry gives me hours and hours of entertainment. He never makes sense. People want to know how they could do these projects at 1310. Is that what you're asking? But then you say they're doing the projects at 1310. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I keep telling you, for 20 years they've been doing projects, and they didn't have to change the exchange rate. I showed you that projects got started. I like how he says that. There's people out there wondering about whether they could continue doing projects at 1310. Continue means they've started. Like you said, they've already started. So if they've already started at a rate of 1310, why does it need to change? They've obviously already calculated what they needed to complete these budgets. And they're doing it at an exchange rate of 1,310 dinars for every dollar. Look, even when he's wrong, he continues to purposely try to mislead his listeners. That's so sad. Anyways, Miss Blashart, she's another subject of rumors that are going around inside the Dinar community. And that is, she's getting ready to step down. And what you're being told, or what you're being misled to think, is she's stepping down because she's no longer needed because they're about to change the exchange rate. And the sanctions are getting ready to be lifted off. That's not the case. That's also false. So we'll get into that as well. Before we get started, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. If you're not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel. And I certainly do appreciate it. If you're thinking about buying gold and silver, head on over to our friends at Miles Franklin. The link will be down below in the description. When you make your purchase, make sure you use promo code Pimpy, P-I-M-P-Y, and they'll take care of you. If you have any additional questions, you can reach us over here at this phone number or over here at this particular email. For all orders over $10,000, reach out by email and we'll make sure that you get a great deal. So come on over to Miles Franklin and add to your precious metal inventory. Iraqi Kurdistan president hits out at Iran and the militia it backs. So the Iraqi Kurdistan president, Barzani, vehemently rejected accusations of Erbil hosting a spy bases for Israel Mossad and said that if there were any evidence, then Iran would have presented it to Iraq. Barzani also slammed the actions of Iranian-backed militia in the region, calling for an end to their disruptive behavior. Are there any guarantees that the Iranian-backed militia will not threaten Kurdistan or Iraq if the defeat ISIS coalition withdraws? He asked during an interview. Barzani pointed to the attacks on the Peshmerga and on Erbil in December. The Islamic resistance in Iraq said it had attacked an occupation base. And last month, Iran claimed an attack on the alleged spy headquarters for the Mossad in Kurdistan. We thought we had good relations with Iran, and we consider Iran an important neighbor to us. When Iran bombed us with cruise missiles, is that a friend? Adding that killing civilians was unacceptable. He also batted down allegations that Kurdistan region was any threat to Iran. We are fully committed to the Iraqi state, and we do not have any ties with Israel, Barzani said while denying that there were any Mossad bases in the region. If Iranian claims were true, they would have presented them as evidence to Baghdad to prove the presence of Mossad. Barzani said there have been no contacts between Kurdistan region and Iran since January attacks, he said. So Barzani's right. If there was evidence of Mossad base there, they definitely would have came forward with it. The news would have been reporting it, but that's not the case. In my opinion, they just struck out over there at Kurdistan because Kurdistan does not want the U.S. military to leave. Like he said, why do we want them to leave? If they leave, what are the chances that these Iranian-backed militia groups won't attack Kurdistan or over there in Baghdad? So here we go. This is what I'm talking about. There's all kinds of rumors going on that Miss Blasthart must be leaving because things are about to get much better in Iraq. When the truth of the matter is, it's just her rotation. The UN mission in Iraq issued a statement, set things in perspective regarding misleading reports by traditional media and Iraqi communication platforms and the Dinar community why the special representative and the security general, Janine Blart, had left the country. In his statement, the mission stressed that the departure of Blart is consistent with practices within the UN, including the usual rotation of senior UN officials. In her last briefing in the Security Council, that she said she might be the last on Iraq, she announced that she arrived in Baghdad in December 2018, and now 5 years later, good Lord, that quick, it's almost time to say goodbye and expect to leave my position at the end of May, describing Iraq as a country of immense beauty, a country of rich diversity and culture where there is many opportunities to seize. The mission distanced itself from allegations of corruption at UNDP and made in a report by the British newspaper The Guardian by asserting that the UNIMA and UNDP have different administrative and financial structures. So yeah, remember I did a report showing you that the United Nations was over there taking bribes on top of bribes on top of bribes. It was crazy. So no, she's not leaving because they're going to lift sanctions and she's no longer needed. It's just a rotation. About the sanctions, Economy News publishes the outputs of the meeting of the Association of the Banks with the Economics of the Parliament. The Committee on Economy, Industry and Trade, headed by the MP, discussed Wednesday with the Association of Iraqi Banks and Directors of Private Banks the sanctions imposed by the U.S. Federal Bank. The committee listened to detailed explanations provided by the Association of Iraqi Banks and Directors of National Banks about the most important problems and obstacles suffered by private banks, including freezing their balances abroad and stopping foreign transactions and transfers of correspondent banks. The Association of Iraqi Banks indicated that the ban imposed on these banks came with a letter from the Central Bank of Iraq without stating the reasons, calling on the House of Representatives and the Parliamentary Economy Committee to intervene to address this issue in cooperation with the Central Bank and the Council of Ministers. The participants stressed that the ban imposed on private banks negatively affected the Iraqi economy, as the private banks constitute more than 47% of the assets, 36% of the deposits, and 37% of the capital, adding that the probation banks constitute 50% of the private banks in Iraq, and this directly affects the performance of the Iraqi economy in a scientific way. For his part, the head of the committee stressed that the House of Representatives pays great attention to this issue as it negatively affects the growth of the Iraqi economy. The committee is following up the matters with the Council of Ministers and the Central Bank of Iraq to find effective solutions to contribute to lifting the ban on these banks. So you guys are already talking about them changing the exchange rate. Here's the thing. I said you're going to see, in my opinion, a slight increase in the exchange rate probably within the first quarter of this year. Not if this crap keeps happening, but still, I still feel in my heart that there might be some kind of change to exchange rate. The first quarter of this year, it's not going to be anything major, but it is going to be an increase. And yes, I know you guys are out there being told there's going to be some huge 3-to-1, 1-to-1, whatever the hell it is, because they need to do all these projects. That's not the case. As I stated before, 20 years they had low exchange rates, and they've been doing projects for 20 years. So how do you explain it that these projects are getting done with the exchange rate currently where it is today? So as you can see right here is the presidential complex. That's the United States Embassy. And if you look, there's all kinds of construction going on. Major construction. I guess they didn't get the memo that you can't do major projects with an exchange rate of 1,310 dinars for every dollar. And as you can see right here, February the 1st, Iraq breaks ground, which means it started, on a $2 billion residential project. This is one of the ones I spoke about. It's already started. You can see right here the Great Mosque of Baghdad is being worked on. That's a pretty big project. Look at these housing projects that are all being worked on. You see the shadows of the buildings. Look at all these housing units being worked on. These are huge buildings. You can see the shadows right here. All the construction people. Huge cranes. All these units are being worked on. See all these? So they've already started these huge projects, and in some cases they're halfway done or almost done. And guess what? They did it with an exchange rate of 1,190, 1,450, and 1,310 dinars for every dollar. So I guess everybody's still holding their breath to find out whether they could do those projects or not. So sanctions on banks, that's not good. But that's the thing about the new reform to the banking systems. Everything is now digital. They're able to track what people are doing better than they did before. But even so, it doesn't stop them from trying to do nefarious things. A member of the Parliamentary Finance Committee, on Wednesday, the U.S. Treasury Department will include new Iraqi banks on the sanctions list unless the Central Bank of Iraq finds solution to them. This is not going to be good for Iraq. What does it do when you put sanctions on it back? That means less U.S. dollars in circulation. It's going to put a huge stress on the parallel exchange rate versus the official exchange rate. This is not what you want. On the evening of last Saturday, I met with the U.S. Treasury attaché in Baghdad and asked him about the reasons for the freezing of 24 Iraqi banks, and he explained to me that most of the banks transferred large amounts of dollars to Iran and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, and this was a reason for their freezing and stopping them from work. See, this is what I'm talking about, the corruption within the government. They cannot stop shooting themselves in the foot. So ask yourself this question. Do you think Iraq is going to be able to increase their exchange rate if they can't stop the U.S. dollar from being sent over to Iran when they know they're not supposed to do that because Iran is on sanctions? More sanctions on Iraq is only going to hurt them, so it's going to get worse before it gets better. Anyways, you guys, let me know what you think. I look forward to hearing from you. I'm out.